If you understand how to access data in the JSON stream, then you can learn to format it in any way you want. So let's take a look at how we can organize certain data using jQuery mobile grids. First, I'm going to go to my JavaScript file, and I'm going to make a variable for all of these different types of data that we received from the feed. So I'll make this one the title, and I'll fix all these other ones. So I want to use both the thumbnail and the title to display a grid of images on this page. I'm not going to need the description and the ID until later, so I'm going to comment those out. Let's take a look at the page that we're going to be designing. The layout should be very similar to the movie we made on creating grids. In order to create a grid in jQuery Mobile, you need to specify two things. Let me go ahead and go to the index and look for this code. So here's our videos page. So we need to specify the type of grid, which in here we specified by doing UI grid A. And the type of grid gets a letter from A to D, where grid A is 2 columns, grid B is 3 columns, and so on and so forth. And then each item has to have a reference to its position on the grid. So here's the first item, and it has UI block A in a div. So this is this item right here. This one right here is UI block B because it's in the second column. The next one is once again UI block A because it's right here on the first column. And the last one's UI block B. So we need to be able to replace that programmatically. And in order to get the letter we need to use something called the modulus operator. It tells you the remainder of a division. So for example, 7 divided by 3 is 2 with a remainder of 1. That's because 2 times 3 is 6, and the number 1 is what's left over from that division. So the modulus operator is the percentage sign, and when you do this kind of operation, you will get the remainder, in this case, the 1. The modulus operator is a great way to columnize data. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we do that. So let's go back into our JavaScript file. And what we're going to do is first create a loop that is going to go through each one of the items in our feed. So I'll do a for loop, and I'll set up a variable called I. And I is going to at first have a value of 0. And we're going to test each time it goes through this loop to see if I is at the end of the list of data feed. And then we're going to increment I using I++. This loop will cycle through all the values in our feed, and it's going to assign this variable. So now I have to change most of these zeros to the letter I because it's going to go through each one of these steps, setting the value for the variable I. The title is going to be not the first title, title 0, but it's going to be title I. So it goes 1, 2, 3, until we expand however many items are in there. This one's also going to be the variable I. This one's not because it refers to the position of the thumbnail URL, which is always going to be our first position here. So now here's where the modulus operator will come in handy. We'll create a variable and we'll call it block type. And we're going to set that variable to test to see if our variable I divided by some number, so divided by 2 in this case, gives us a remainder of 1. And if it doesn't, it's going to set the value of block type to B. Otherwise, it'll set it to A. So what this is testing right now is to see if when we divide I by 2, if we get a remainder of 1 or not. Essentially what that's doing is it's telling us whether or not the number is even or odd. If it's an even number, then it's going to go in the first column, column A. If it's an odd number, then it'll go in the second column. So now we can set up our output. And our output is going to be plus equal here, and we need to actually set it up over here. So we'll create a variable output and set it to nothing at first. And then down here, set the output variable to div, and give it a class of UI block. And then it's going to get the value from block type. So we'll add block type here. And then plus, and then close out that div. Next, we're going to add to the output variable, and we're going to do a h3 right here, a head tag, and we'll also give that head tag a class of movie title. And let me go ahead and close that h tag here. And in here, we will just add our title variable that we created up there. And finally, we'll add the image. And the image is going to have the value of the thumbnail. And we need to add an alt tag here. And the alt tag is going to have the value of the title. And finally, we will output a closing div here. So that div is going to close this UI block. Finally, we need to output this to the video list ID. Now I need to go ahead and delete all this HTML. So let me go over here and get all of these divs here. Make sure that I delete all these blocks because we're going to replace those. And I'm going to add some comments here just to make it easier. So this is the grid, and this is the content. And we need to have a closing part for this UI block div right here. Let me delete that one as well. And all my data is going to be inserted right there. So I'll save that, come back over here. And once I do that, then I can use jQuery to send to the video list the HTML with the output that I've prepared up here. If we did everything perfectly, then when I refresh here, it's going to get the data from my feed and insert it with the right movies and thumbnails right there. So that's looking really, really good. Now these titles are getting a little bit long, and since we've got a variable height for the titles, it's going to make our grid look a little ugly. So all we have to do now is adjust the CSS a little bit. Let me go ahead and save this, open up our CSS file. Let me go ahead and put this before my media queries. Just give myself some room right there. And I'm going to add something for the video list H3. And what I'll do here is set the margin. The margin is going to be 15 pixels, 0, 5 pixels, 0. So what that's doing is setting up the top margin to be 15 pixels, the right margin to 0, bottom margin to 5 pixels, and left margin to 0. Then we'll set up a height, 40 pixels. And we want the overflow here because you can see a little bit of this text over here. We'll set the overflow to hidden so it doesn't show up. Looks like I'm still not getting all that right there. So let's try 45. That looks a little better. It's a little big, so let's set the font size to 1M. See how that looks. Yeah, it looks like I could go back here to 35. That looks pretty good right there. And just in case, I'm going to set my video list image tag to be just 90% of the width. And as I make this bigger and smaller, that width of that image is going to adjust. And that's looking pretty good. That's a pretty decent style for the videos page. And notice that right now I have 12 videos that qualify under those tags. And so that's what is showing. But as soon as I upload a video, YouTube does a really good job. Even if I'm somewhere and I record a video and I upload it to YouTube, it takes a few minutes for it to just appear. Although the data from our YouTube JSON stream is a little bit more complicated, displaying our information is just about as easy. Understanding how to use the modulus operator to columnize data is going to come handy in the future.